Hey everybody, Z Garcia here, and today I'm taking a look at my top 10 playing card decks of all time, into which none of these made it. I wouldn't call myself an avid collector of playing cards, but I do enjoy playing cards, and I do enjoy collecting them. I have about 80 decks or so. And today I'm going to be taking a look at my 10 favorite decks. They might be my favorites because of the style, the general theme, the graphical touches, generally a combination of those things. There's something about all 10 of these decks that speaks to me, that I find captivating, interesting, just outside the norm enough that I very much enjoy them. I'm not a big fan of particularly outside the box decks of cards, very outlandish and wild, but I do like plenty of customization. I want them to have unique pips, to have interesting face cards, lots of different things like that. You'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. So let's go ahead and stop beating around the bush. Let's jump into my number 10. The number 10 spot goes to Animal Kingdom right here. This was put out by Theory 11. And it is a very whimsical deck. This was in partnership with the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, and $1 from every deck sold went to the WWF. Like I said, very whimsical. They have made all of the face cards be different animals while still utilizing the traditional court designs. All of the pips in here are custom. The entire thing has a very vibrant and welcoming look and feel. It is kind of silly. It is lighthearted. I like this one. This is not my usual style. I don't necessarily tend to love the ones that are on the lighter side of the spectrum. I'm talking about tonally. I tend to like dark, brooding decks. But this one sneaks in at number 10 because it is a gorgeous composition. I really do like what's going on here. I like the burnt orange. Also, it's probably one of my favorite colors used in playing cards. And the whole thing is just sweet and gentle. And it's one I very much enjoy having, shuffling, playing with, and looking at. The number 9 spot goes to Eyyptium. This one is the Sunny edition of Eyyptium. I don't know what the other versions look like. I like this one quite a bit. Again, more of that burnt orange, but this one is a much darker, more dense-looking deck of cards. One of the things that holds it back for me is, I think the pip design in this one is just on the verge of being too outlandish, where it's hard to recognize, oh, that's a club and that's a heart at a very quick glance. So while I like the custom pips and I think they are very well made, it is just on the cusp of that being too much, too out there. But I love the court designs in this one. They are, again, the art style in here is almost impenetrable. But the more you look at it, the more details you'll find in those designs, and I do enjoy that. I like the Egyptian theme. I like all the details with the gold foiling and the metallic inks going on here. So this is one I do enjoy. The font choice on this one is a little bit tricky. I'm not a big fan of the jacks. The J they're using for that is a little hard to see. It does kind of look like a 7 at a quick glance. But again, you should be able to obviously very quickly tell that's not a 7. It's a court card. So yeah, I do enjoy it. Nice back design, very by turns traditional in its approach to the Egyptian lore, I guess I'll call it. And in many ways, very much not that. Very modern, very of the times right now, the kinds of things that decks of playing cards love to do currently. So yes, a nice deck, lovely, one that if I want something with a lot of flourish and a deep, almost mystical feel to it, this is a good one for that, Eyyptium. At number 8, I've got the Bohemia deck here, put out by Uzi. This is printed, as many of these decks are, by the United States Playing Card Company. Some of them are printed by other manufacturers, such as Legend, and some others. And I might even mention that when I come around to it. So this one has a hand-illustrated quality to it, largely because, well, it is hand-illustrated. So you'll see gradients and variability on the pips on the faces of the cards. You're going to just pick up on some subtle details that this feels handmade. And I think that quality is one of my favorite things about it. It's not something I always like in cards. I do enjoy precision and specificity when it comes to cards. But this one gets away with it because it feels almost like an heirloom. There's something about this deck that feels timeless. The color choices, I think, are very interesting. Again, that variability of the colors. So you'll have, on one of the red cards, you'll have very distinct shades of red that go all the way from deep reds to basically pinks. I think that looks good. I think that's interesting. The fact that the jacks in this game are mounted, so you can see the horses also be illustrated on the cards, on the faces of those cards. So this is an interesting one. I think Uzi, the manufacturers here, are a little hit and miss for me. Some of their decks and some of their styles sometimes are not really something I particularly enjoy. This is my favorite one from them. This one manages to capture something that really feels classical in a way. And I appreciate that when it comes to a deck of cards. Something, again, kind of timeless about this one. So that is the Bohemia deck, my number 8. Next up, I'm taking a look at the Sultana deck here from Deco Playing Cards. I think this is a little bit of a lesser-known deck, a little bit harder to find, this one. And I think the sort of classical Middle East setting in this one is beautiful. It's handled lovingly. The cards, again, have sort of a gentle feel to them, much like the Animal Kingdom deck, which was more whimsical and lighthearted. This one feels like it has a light touch without the whimsy necessarily. You can sort of decipher that some of these folks have a hard life. There are many soldiers, there are many weapons featured, but the whole thing feels loving and lovingly produced. The use of color here, I think, is fantastic. Again, some of the almost pastel colors. The backs of the cards have that vibrancy and detail to them that is very lovely. And one thing I really like about this one is the aces themselves. It has the large aces where all the aces are given some special treatment. I'm a big fan of that. I almost demand that in a deck of cards. But in this one, they have played with the transparency of that large pip in the center so that the design on the background shines through it. You can see the line work behind it, and it's a really neat effect. So I really like the aces in this deck. I think the color variance between the traditional black and red to sort of a peach color for the red and the bluish for the black isn't too outside the norm where I'm thrown off by it. So again, I really like the color usage in this one. Lovely theme, lovely cards. This is also produced by the USPCC, so fantastic card quality, of course, and that's true for all of these decks, by the way. So yes, the Sultana deck here is a rare and beautified object that I really do like. So that's my number 7. Number 6 for me goes to the Heretic deck. This one has, for one thing, a very interesting tuck box in which the flap is actually quite a large flap, goes all the way down past the middle of the box, and the deck seal went over that. I simply peeled it up and then stuck the seal back onto the box. So yes, it stays open like this, which is not normally a problem because I'll have another deck pressing up against it. So the box is already kind of interesting. The cards have great usage of geometry on them. I really like pip arrangements in this one for just the number cards. They've done some interesting designs there. And then the geometry on the jokers, the geometry displayed on the aces. Again, large aces, very nicely done. Great font usage in this as well. I really like the font. And the whole thing is just a little bit spooky, a little mysterious, a little dark. Not too dark. I've got some of those decks, and they are freakier and spookier than this one. this one dips a toe into that mystery without letting it overwhelm the entire design and idea of the deck here. The sort of emotions in the deck are a little more subtle, perhaps. So I really like this one. Court cards are neat. They have a slightly more traditional feel to the pip arrangements, but all of the number cards have that hand on the background, which is a cool design touch. Doesn't overwhelm what's going on the design of that card. You can definitely still feature, see the pips being featured front and center. But yes, I do like this one. This is a very neat deck they printed in Taiwan with Expert Playing Card Company. I've got a few decks from them. They have a different feel than a Bicycle deck or a United States Playing Card Company deck, but it's still very, very much a high-quality product. And if you want something a little spookier, a little more mischievous, a little bit darker, then the Heretic deck here is a good choice for that. So I really like it. My number 5 spot goes to the Venusiana Dark Edition here, also known as the Masked Edition. This one is from Half Moon Playing Cards, also printed from Expert Playing Card Company. And I'm not normally a big fan of dark cards, and by that I mean dark bordered cards. Cards where the back design will have a dark border, a black border, and in the fronts also. This is the Dark Edition, and this is one of the few exceptions to that rule for me. I do not own a lighter edition of this one. This is the only Venusiana deck I have, but I really like it. I think the design, the Venice trope, the sort of, the trappings of Venice, of Carnival, of the masked characters, the mystery, the suspense, the slipping notes and poisoning someone's drink, all of that you see in the court cards here is very well done. This deck really has the ability to transport you to that setting in Venice, and the mystery and the suspense and the backstabbing that happens there. Really fun stuff in the court cards here as well. Some of the characters you'll see passing notes to themselves because of the rotational symmetry. So holding their hand out and grabbing a note from themselves, that sort of thing is really well done. And I find this one just clean, elegant, while still having enough flourishes to stand out from just a clean and elegant deck. There's plenty of those kinds of decks. This one does something above and beyond that to really stand out for me. So, Venusiana Dark Edition here. I would love to see or have access to one of the lighter editions. I could see myself really, really liking that. I know that the characters in some of those, then they're the same people. They just have their masks off. But I don't have access to those, don't have a deck of those. So the dark ones here will have to do, and they definitely fulfill that because they are lovely, lovely cards. For my next pick here at number 4, I'm going with something a little more traditional, a little easier to find, I should say. And this is the National Playing Cards deck from Theory 11. Theory 11 has a lot of very elegant, gorgeous-looking decks. This one happens to be one of my favorites of that style. My favorite of that style from them. The reason I like it so much is because of the great amount and usage of metallic inks in this deck is lovely. I like stylistically what they did. They did not go with anything that is unchanged here. All the pips are custom. All the court cards custom. The aces in this game are lovely. Large aces, lots of detail in there. And yet the deck manages to not feel heavy. It feels very light and feathery and gentle in a way. So I really like it. This is a very playable deck of cards. This is one I would certainly shuffle up and play a card game with because it is identifiable and very easy to read and see what's going on. And yet, every single card you look at has been changed and has been made custom in many different ways. Just one of the finest decks of playing cards that's been put out. Really straddling the line between highly customized and unique and distinct and classical in its trappings and in what it's attempting to do. That's what makes the deck so playable. So lovely, National, my number 4 spot. My number 3 spot goes to Calaveras here. This one has a Mexican Day of the Dead theme, kind of. And it is stylistically and aesthetically, artistically, just amazing, truly amazing. I believe the designer here works in either wood carving or rubber stamps or something like that, so that they do the transfer on a rubber stamp. And the line work, the detail is just incredible. It is so, it feels very old-timey in a way, but the card quality and the production is extremely modern. The whole thing, again, dips a toe into that timeless feel for me. And it has one of the things I really dislike in decks of cards, and that is that the cord cards do not have rotational symmetry. Meaning if you flip the card upside down, the character is upside down. It's not two halves that no matter which way you're looking at it, they look the same. In this one, though, I overlook it because that large character that looks like a portrait of a general or a musician or what have you, all sorts of characters, they really look regal, even though they are, of course, the character is represented by a skull or a skeleton. The fact that it is the large portrait looks very regal, looks very elegant and important. And I like that look in this one. This one also has aces that are gorgeous. Each one is an entire display with the large pip, a flower arrangement, some skulls. The whole thing is beautiful. So, yes, the Calaveras deck here is absolutely one of my favorites. I like this theme a lot, and in fact, you're going to see this theme again in just a little bit. The sugar skulls or the Mexican Day of the Dead. So there you go. That's my number 3. I talked about the National deck from Theory 11 being one of my favorite elegant decks of cards. But my favorite elegant deck of cards is this one right here called the Spirit deck from Gambler's Warehouse in Texas. This one has that rubbery feel on the outside that some Theory 11 decks use. And it has metallic inks galore. It is just completely covered in metallic inks. I really like the cord cards in this one are very different. They are all facing outward as opposed to most decks that are not looking straight out. They'll be in profile or something like that. So yeah, all the line work around every frame in this one I really enjoy. I think the font usage here is lovely. I like the pip design, just a little swirly, a little flourish on all of the different pips for all of the suits, but they're not heavy-handed. This deck, again, is a very, it's a light deck. It's one that uses the flourishes and the distinct style in a controlled way. And that's one thing I really like about decks of cards is when you can tell that they are being particularly thoughtful and cautious with the language they've discovered and how they utilize that language. So this one manages to do that for me. Again, it just feels regal and elegant to pull this deck out, to shuffle it, to play with it. Also, the aces in this one are large, not necessarily very fancy, but it still manages to, again, have that subdued ability to look elegant without outdoing itself. So the Spirit deck, a lovely deck, my number 2. And finally, my number 1, I already hinted at the theme here, the Mexican Day of the Dead theme, is this deck right here called Fuego. And this one has the theme of Calaveras. It has some of the whimsy of some of the, Animal Kingdom deck and some of the other ones we've seen that are very lighthearted and almost fun to it. There's a certain amount of fun that is built into the deck. And I love the color usage in this one. I think the background being fully tiled, for lack of a better term, and having that lovely shade of blue, all of the color usage here. The aces in this game are some of my favorite aces in any deck of cards, with the detail line work in there. Very traditionally Mexican, just lovely, vibrant. The characters feel like they straddle that line perfectly between kind of spooky and kind of silly, very lighthearted. So this one is a truly stunning deck of cards for me. This is also, by the way, this is from Cellar Window, and this one is also printed in Taiwan. This is printed from Legends, though, playing card company. So a really neat, distinct feel to the cards. They're very smooth, shuffle extremely well, but they do feel different, almost slightly more plasticky than what USPCC puts out. I have two of these, actually. I have this red one and one that I believe is black or blue. It has a different color, a different sort of pattern. They're both great. I think I like this one slightly better, just the coloration on this one slightly better. But yeah, this is my favorite deck of cards that I own. It just nails the mood, the look, the feel. Everything works together here to immerse me in something fantastic. Just handling these transports me. So there you go. That's my number one, Fuego. So there you go, everybody. That is my top 10 decks of playing cards that I own, my 10 favorite decks. Hopefully you've discovered some new decks yourself, maybe something you want to look into, and maybe just discovered a little bit about what I like in decks of playing cards. The certain things that I tend to gravitate towards. The amount of customization, the themes, the flourishes, the touches that I tend to like. So that's going to do it for me, everybody. Thanks very much for hanging out with me. Tell me in the comments below, I am very curious, your favorite decks of cards. Some out there that maybe I haven't seen, that have eluded me, that you find particularly beautiful, especially if it's something you think I'll like, because it touches some of these sensibilities, all right? So that's going to do it. My name is Garcia. Thanks very much. I'll see you on the next one.